Now, we've seen some interesting, shocking upsets in the results, especially for the senatorial election. Some have said, this smells good for our democracy. It's beginning to feel like votes count.
Yeah, over time, it's not new, really. You know, it's just that we really don't have a good sense of history in this part of the world. And so when things happen like this, we see them as novel. And so, yes, while I agree that to some extent, yeah, vote counts, there is still room for manipulation, and there's still, you know, like the issue we just discussed about in Imo, the issue of the one in Bayelsa, remember the police commission, deputy commissioner of police also,
yeah,
who was dragged by, you know, party,
violence, yeah.
you know, talks and, you know, all of this. So why we are attempting to make our vote count, but there is still, yeah, you know, a lot of manipulations here and there. But then, why I said this is not novel, it's not new. You remember in the heydays of PDP, you know, they dominated both the red and the green chambers, and they had absolute majority, two-third majority in both chambers. At a point, they could remove Senate presidents at will. That you know, I think during the second tenure of President Olusegun Obasanjo,
yes.
you know, we had,
that was
you
an
know,
interesting
yeah, we had 3 Senate presidents back to back. You know, some lasted just 6 months. You know, so but the most important thing is that we still do not really appreciate the impact of the National Assembly or the Parliament, the legislative, you know, arm of government in our democratic practice. I say this because we see the presidential election as, you know, the alpha and omega. Yes, I agree, because of the enormous powers, you know, of the president under our constitution. But you find out that the president of Nigeria cannot do anything without the concurrence or the approval of the National Assembly.
Absolutely.
We saw that in this current government, when the president said he didn't care who emerged as leader in the National Assembly, and that anybody that emerged he will work with. And some of us were shocked when he made that statement. We're like, you really don't understand the importance of the National Assembly. If you believe that you're going to drive a new process, then you should be interested who becomes the leader of the National Assembly. You should lobby to have a leader that, you know, is, you know, share the same political ideology with you. Otherwise, you're going to run into murky waters. And we all saw the challenges back and forth. And so, to that extent, a lot of people will have this, you know, bandwagon effect of, yes, once, you know, this party is in power, naturally you should have people, you know, from that party, you know, control the National Assembly also. But against the backdrop of the fact that most of these political parties and their members don't share a common ideology. And so
even
it is
those within the same...
Yeah, the same political party. Okay. So it is convenient for somebody to move from, take Dino Melaye, for example. Dino was in PDP and then moved from PDP to APC, while Smart Adeyemi was in PDP then. Dino contested under APC and won. Defeated Smart Adeyemi in PDP, and then Dino defected to PDP. Smart Adeyemi defected to APC. They contested. They swap roles. You know, take Rotimi Amechi and Wike. Rotimi Amechi, both of them were in PDP. Amechi left, went to APC, and then they swap roles. You have Wike came from ministerial to governorship, and Amechi moved from governorship to ministerial. You know, so it's replicated everywhere. Look at Saraki. Saraki was in PDP, moved to APC, you know, back to PDP. He was, and those years that PDP was in the saddle, they had absolute majority, they had two-third majority in the National Assembly. They were their own enemies. All the impeachment orchestrated at the National Assembly and the House of Rep were spearheaded by members of the PDP and not opposition. Remember, the Patricia Ete it was spearheaded by you had the integrity group, and then some people labeled the other one integrity group. And the Farouk Lawa headed one, and he was a member of PDP. Even at the National Assembly, the impeachment of Okadigbo from Evans Ewerem to Okadigbo to Wabara, they were all spearheaded by the PDP members. You know, even the emergence of Tambuwa as leader in the National Assembly, he was a PDP member, you know, but some members in PDP spearheaded the move against the party instruction. So it has nothing really to do with the party as a whole. It's more of an individual thing. And if the electorate understands it from that point of view, then we won't be looking at it, oh yes, they are the same party. They might end up, you know, being the enemies of the party, just like we're seeing with this administration. And then if care is not taken, some people who just latch onto the party, maybe because of the larger-than-life image of the president, just to win election, you know, might get there and they suddenly discover that, you know, this person is not actually with us.
What are the weaknesses in the political system, the existing weaknesses in our political system that, you know, allows parties without any clear ideology, and then, of course, facilitates the defections and the back-and-forth defections?
You see, the Constitution allows for freedom of association. It's a fundamental, you know, fundamental right. And so you can associate. And then also, the Electoral Act talks about formation of political parties, and once you meet the requirement, INEC is obliged to register such political parties. And then, when you talk about freedom of association, one would have expected, also then you look at Chapter 2 of the Constitution, that's the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. And the party manifestos are anchored on these fundamental objective and directive principles. But that's as far as it gets. It's just like, you know, registering a business. You are registering a business because, you know, you are required by law, by the Company and Allied Matters Act, to have, you know, objects for the company. And then you really don't know what you want to do, but you have omnibus clause. You know, you're doing A, B, C, and then X, Y, Z, etc., etc. You know, so, but at some point that was streamlined by the Corporate Affairs. But that's the same thing with political parties and association. So you find out that because the constitution of the party is supposed to, the manifesto is supposed to be drawn from the fundamental objectives in Chapter 2, that's all it ends. That's where it ends. And so when they discuss what is the objective or what is the ideology of PDP, for example, and what's the ideology of APC, there are no clear-cut ideology. And so because there are no clear-cut ideology also, because they tell you there's freedom of association, so a man has a right to associate with whoever he wants to associate with. So it's a fundamental right. So the party would say, well, the politics is a game of numbers. So he comes in with his followers, we would admit him. But if until we begin to anchor our belief in political system, on ideologies, what do these people stand for? We want to know what they stand for before we follow them, before we support them. That is how we can't legislate it. It's already provided in the law that it must be anchored on the basic principles: economic policies, educational policy, health policies, international policies, all of this. But you cannot legislate beyond that to say, look, for you to admit members, they must share the same ideology with you. These are functions of political party ordinarily. But you find out that the actors, for them, it is about, like GT said on this platform about 3 days ago, it's a special purpose vehicle for them to winning elections. And so if they see parties as SPVs, so anybody that will aid that purpose, you know, will be admitted, whether the person is a criminal or not, whether you share the same ideology or not.
So far you can get us to the promised land.
So far you can get us to where we want to get to.